Evening and welcome to the first of two Inside Government programs tonight for the fall 2021 semester here at Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. Normally, our first guest of each semester is tonight's guest, Mayor Michael D. Quill. But with all the number of forums that we did this year, which was a lot of them, the first time that we could have guests in the studio was on Election Day, and we didn't think that this guest and our next guest, Aileen McNabb Coleman, the chair of the Cuyahoga County Legislature, would be the right guest to talk about politics on Election Day. So we have waited a couple of days, but are delighted to have back in the studio Mayor Quill. Election 2021 is over, and while there are some absentees to be counted, and as we tape this, at a little after 3 o'clock on Tuesday, we'll talk about the results that we know so far. But it looks like the Democrats will have continue to have control of City Council, and it looks like a 4-1 control on that of the 5 seats come January 1st. But even before that, there are about 45 days left in the current City Council's term, and there are still items on their agenda that we're going to talk about. And one of those items that we'll talk about is the issue of the opt-out for retail marijuana sales in the city of Auburn, and that is a decision that has to be made by December 31st. So we'll talk about those and a number of other issues, but first of all, Mary, welcome back. Glad to have you at least during the semester, maybe not the first guest with all the forums.
I'm always glad to be here, no matter what, first, last, or in between. It's not like eating.
It's not eating. So you've had a busy month. You opened the new public safety building.
Correct.
You were the master of ceremonies for a very nice ceremony about 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
Is the fire department in there now?
I don't believe they're completely in. I think they're still working out of Market Street and just some finishing touches, so forth and so on, to the new building.
So we'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to talk about you are going to you're going to have a new council, and as we talk right now at 3:15, both of us have gotten texts that say that it looks like it is mathematically probable or not changeable that you're going to have Terry Cuddy, who's been reelected to another term, and you're going to now have freshman. And I should know this better than anybody else, Ginny Kent, since she's in my office, will be joining council at this stage. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding as of when we started taping here today.
So are you surprised at the election results at all?
No, not really. I don't offer my opinion prior to the election because I don't feel that's fair, and I don't like to be wrong. But I am not surprised. They all did a great job of with their campaign, and we would have worked with any of them. I'm happy the way it turned out. But
I'm sure you are. So let me ask you about the transition, because while you're losing Debbie McCormick, and we'll talk about her in a moment, you will be getting Ginny Kent in. So what will you and City Council, but just as importantly, City staff be doing to get her ready so she hits the ground running on January 1st?
Normally, City staff will have a binder for her for any new council member to bring them up to speed on different issues that are the council is working on, preparing to work on, or resolutions. At the same time, once we get that official, if we go into executive session, it's always been the practice, probably even back with yourself.
We did.
We would bring the council-elect in to bring them up to speed.
So that could be as early. We taped this on the 9th because of Veterans Weekend or Veterans Day. You're meeting today, so you could, in essence, if you had an executive session tonight, possibly bring her in, or you'd wait for the certification of the election.
Personally, I'd rather wait for the certification, just to treat everyone the same as has been the practice.
So I have to ask this only because he has appeared now on the ballot, most likely more than anyone else, other than, if I think about Frank Mastropetro, and that goes back decades. But it looks like former Mayor Jim Lattimore, or current county legislator, is going to come in third place. Do you see him running again? Do you see him running in 2023, whether it's for mayor or city council?
Absolutely. You can't deny his spirit. He really wants to participate.
And just for the record, you have 1 in 4 contests with him, correct on that?
Correct.
So you haven't made a decision what you're doing in 2 years.
Joan and I have, my wife Joan and I have discussed it, but that's between us at this point.
And
We
it's early.
still have a long way.
So one of the people you are losing is Debbie McCormick.
Correct.
She was, I think, city clerk when you came aboard as mayor in 2008.
Actually, she was city clerk when I was fire chief.
Fire chief.
Prior to becoming mayor.
And then obviously joined council 2 terms ago. So any thoughts on her service to the city?
She's a terrific person. She really is very knowledgeable, knows the political ins and outs, but she's very in tune with all the water issues and everything going on in that regard. So hopefully we can keep her on in some way, shape, or form.
So maybe an advisory role or something of that
whatever,
nature.
yeah. But it'll be a loss to the community.
One of the things that you're dealing with now that you may not have specific numbers for is that with all that's going on with COVID, there's going to be an influx of money, and there has been an influx of money from Washington and to a lesser degree from the state.
Right.
On this federal money, do you have an idea? I've heard 14 million, 12 million. Do you have an idea of how much you will receive?
No, I do not. We do have it. As you mentioned, we have a council meeting this evening. I'm hoping Mr. Dyer will be able to share a little more information at that point.
So the federal money that's COVID related, that has to be spent over the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
So you've spent a small portion of it already. Am I correct?
Yes. Yep.
So what's that gone to in general?
I think a portion of it went into the ambulance service we had in different, and I don't know, I think at this point it's like trying to plug up the dam, leak here, leak there, and just try to keep things going. But then we as a council, and I think Jeff is waiting for our new council to come on board so we can all sit down and have discussions as to what we should be working on, we should concentrate on.
Some of this is there are many categories that, and I know at the county it can be broadband, recreational. There's a set of categories you'll have to do.
Correct.
But it really does look like this would be something that while you've spent some money, this is a new council decision. Am I correct on that?
It's correct.
So I think the manager was in your seat 2 weeks ago, or last week, I shouldn't say 2 weeks, last week. He said council's come up with a list of what you think are priorities. So what are some of the things that council would like to see?
I think they wanted to raise the mayor's salary to about $100,000 a year or something like that. But
the one question I didn't get to ask it was not on the mayor's salary, but on city council salary. Let me digress for a second.
Sure,
we'll come back to this. The mayor's salary has not been increased, to the best of my knowledge. I left City Hall 24 years ago this January, if I'm doing my math correctly. So it really hasn't been done in 28 years. Is there ever going to, because the county legislature did bite the bullet recently. I think it's 13.5 now, and there's an escalator in there. Isn't it time for the city to get this done?
That is a group decision. Personally, I don't want to say in a good place in my life, but I am fortunate. It's a very political issue. It's a lightning rod, really. It really is whether we should raise the salary of the councilors and myself. I'm not even going to wade into this. I'm happy where I am.
I would be somebody who said tried to do it, that it wouldn't affect me personally, but I still tried to do it, and I might as well have been banging at the moon. That's how successful I was.
Well, you said something there that's important. If council and myself decided that was in the cards to do that, it should be when that individual leaves. So, for example, if the mayor was going to...
So 2023 should be, where you would basically, the earliest it could take effect would be 2024. And the only reason I asked this, I meant to ask it at the Wednesday morning roundtable, we got segued into other subjects, was whether it's not that anybody's going to do this for the money. If you do this for the money, you are literally doing the wrong job.
Yes.
But there are costs for doing this. We haven't had a lawyer, I want to say, in 20 years on council, to the best of my knowledge. No. Frankly, because they can't cover the cost of their billable hours. Yep. I remember a managing partner having a conversation with them. Having an associate or a partner, a junior partner sit on council is costly to a firm.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And not that the firm would make that money, but at some point, doesn't this need to be taken up or put before the voters?
I don't think it is a mayor, a member of council really should bring it up. If someone from the public is interested in it, something along those lines, or the county legislature talk with us. But I think it's a no-win situation if it was brought up by myself and council. Yeah. Personally, I didn't do it for the money, as I'm sure you didn't.
No.
You know,
though I will say $10,000 25 years ago was different when you look at inflation and all that. And I say that only from the perspective that mayors are a little different than councilors, but mayors are more often than not invited to events, and their costs are covered because they're going to present a key or they're going to speak. Right. But city councilors who have to buy a ticket to this event or that dinner or something like that, it does cost money. Yeah. And people don't. It's like teachers with school supplies. We sometimes don't understand that sometimes many teachers for their classrooms dig into their own pocket. Not all of them, but many of them do that. So I guess from my perspective, I tried to even put it on an escalator with inflation and couldn't.
Well, to be honest, a lot of my money that my wife Joan and I have talked about, a lot of it goes to laundry, buy a new tie or suit coat here or whatever. It just, it's part of it.
I will tell you, Muldoon's is thrilled we're back here because now suits and ties are getting, and shirts are getting laundered. So, and it does get expensive. Yeah. I digress. No, let's spend the real money, though. The real money is this federal money. So where you jokingly said pay, but where do you as a member of council see some of this money being spent?
I see a portion of it. I believe City Hall needs some updates and upgrades. For example, the front door exit off of South Street. That has been closed most of the time to COVID. It's not a fire safe door in that it can be closed and open in an emergency. That's part of it. We need something with our courthouse. We're still going back and forth with Q County and New York State. We lease portion of the old post office
for Shady Court.
Yeah. So something has to be done in that regard.
Do you, in doing this, you served not as chief, but you did serve under Bruce Clifford. Mm-hmm. He usually had a policy for federal money that it would go to non-recurring costs or capital expenses, and he was very good about managing money in that regard. Do you think that's what council will look at? So you mentioned the doors, you mentioned the courthouse. Yep. It's not necessarily to new positions. I know Jeff Perazzola was here last week. He said, I have this money. At some point, I have to put it in labor. That's not what you're looking at. You're looking at capital expenditures. Absolutely.
Yeah. We our buildings are like your own home. After a while, these are almost 20. Some are 24/7 operations where they do take some abuse and misuse, and they have to be upgraded. To me, this is a long-term investment in the Auburn's future.
So so we talk about that money that you're already planning to get. So on Friday night, the House voted on an infrastructure bill, sent it to the president's desk.
They finally voted?
Yeah, they finally voted. So I'm assuming the city does not know what's in there for you yet.
No, if Mr. Dyer and the staff know, it hasn't been shared with us, to the best of my knowledge.
When do you think the city will find out, and what would you see it? There's money in there for roads, bridges. You've just done 2 bridges in your own, at least 2 bridges in your tenure, State Street and North Division.
Our sewer system needs continuously to be upgraded. Our water system, it works great, but everything ages out, so there's a lot of work needs to be done with that. There's talk of repairs to the upper pumping station on Swift Street in that area, and the different problems we've had. The federal government's always changing the rules and regulations. The clarity of the water, what may be in it. So there's always something, and I'm not purposely avoiding you, but there's so many things. Which one do we pick, and how do we pick it? So.
But you do expect there'll be large public discussions on how that money.
I would insist on it.
How about for the other money that I'm talking about? Do you think those are things that will come up at public meetings, or you'll have public presentations? Or are you just not that far yet?
We're not to that point yet, but our planning staff are really terrific. I'll give them a shout out. What they are proposing, for example, they want to redo a playground or whatever. They do a lot of time. They spend a lot of time with the neighbors in having surveys. What should be done, and how do we do this, and how do we do that? Trust me, myself and counselors, we can come up with some great ideas, but just putting it on paper and getting it done is a different category.
But you are giving input.
We're always asked for our input. And not to interrupt you one more time, but anytime we talked about a playground or a neighborhood, it's always come in front of council for our input, whether we think it's a good idea, bad idea, what are we missing, what are we adding too much to.
So mentioned 2 weeks ago, you had your opening of the public safety building. Correct. So now at this particular time with the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, better known as the DRI, right. You have Culinary Institute. You right. had Kathy Hochul, the then Lieutenant Governor, soon to be Governor, there for that ribbon cutting. You've done the ribbon cutting in public safety. What's next in that pool of $10 million projects for the city that you'd like to see done or completed?
I can't answer. It's been a while since I worked with it. I can't tell you what the priorities are right now.
Part of them have been held up by COVID, though, correct? Right. Yeah. So I know in the case of the Culinary Institute, it was a valve that had to come in. The fire department, I think City Manager Jeff Diger talked about pushing through even there. Part of it, you're dealing with supply issues. And for some of these other projects, there's a local match, sometimes by fundraising.
Right.
So some of those. So besides DRI, you mentioned a couple of projects. What do you see as the city's non-DRI next big project?
We need jobs back in our community. You know, if we're never going to have an Amazon or something like that show up, although we certainly wouldn't turn them away. But we need to get some jobs local here for folks to work, so they have something to look forward to and work at. Everything now is done by a computer.
Right. You know, but you did make Ada just voted on. Did they vote last week or the week before on the new plant? 100 jobs in the marijuana industry.
Yep.
So for those, it came up in the forums. Could you quickly just tell us what they're going to do there?
It's my understanding that it's all going to be grown indoors. And whether it's I'm not sure whether it's going to be used for medical marijuana, as they say, or other byproducts of it. I do not have that information.
So one of the issues that is out there, and you've read it in the newspaper, that some towns and villages in Cuyahoga County have been dealing with this issue of the opt-out. And as I understand, the opt-out restriction is that you have to vote on this by December 31st. If you don't, you can't revisit this, correct?
That's my understanding also.
So some communities here have had very public discussions. Some have changed the law, some have modified, some have done interesting mixes dealing with marijuana and tobacco, which I thought was very creative. Is this coming to a vote before City Council before the end of the year?
I'm sure if it's not before the end of the year, it'll be very close. But where I think people are having difficulty, and this is the way I'm looking at it, people think by having it in their community, that's encouraging the use of it. And that's kind of far from the truth in my mind. So whether you stop in Auburn or Port Barn or Weedsport, pick it up, that community gets a percentage of the sales tax.
Yeah, I think Port Barn had said basically we can opt out of it. There's still, most people are going to go to Auburn for sales if that's what they want to do.
And that doesn't say we're condoning the use of it or whatever. Go ahead.
So do you think that it'll be, so one of the criticisms of the city has been, it hasn't been on the agenda where all these other towns and villages have. So you do think that you're not going to just let it by default go into effect?
I'm sure there will be some discussion. You know yourself on city council, a lot of things are held up because of an election.
Right.
No one wants to put their finger in the light socket, but a lot of things, and to be also sincere, that we haven't been meeting as a group. We've been meeting telecommunications or whatever the case may be. And that takes a lot of flavor from the council meetings.
Do you have a personal feeling whether the city should opt in or opt out?
I don't have a problem with us selling it, because if we don't sell it, it's going to come from another community. It doesn't say I endorse the use of it. I've never used it. I have no intention of starting. Come close, but no, I have no intention.
But there is a financial incentive for the city to allow it, because you get some revenues off that.
That's correct. You get a portion of your taxes from it.
So I said there's about 45 days left in the year. If you take the holidays and mix them all in, and what you can do. Anything on the agenda that you'd like to get done in the next 45 days?
I'd like to get City Hall and our staff and council all back on somewhat of a regular schedule. It's been very hard on the staff.
So you'd like to have regular sessions?
Well, we really have.
No, but I meant where more people are coming in or allowed.
Yeah, we always encourage people. We have our public to be heard. We always have a few folks that are there more than others, but it's their way to approach the council and explain to the councilors what is on their plate, what's bothering them, and so forth and so on. Just getting back in person with meetings. That's, you and I were talking before our sit down here. It's tough.
They're horrible.
I'm on 2 other boards that are, one is in Syracuse and one is out of Albany, and it's really tough talking. And I'd like to go to a meeting personally, and I like body language.
It helps. It determines where people are going.
Absolutely.
So one's an insurance consortium,
correct,
and one is the airport authority, which you
can't keep anything from you.
Well, you were nice enough to get us the guest from the airport who was here some time ago.
Our executive director.
So you're director there. So I'll come back to those in a second, but I do want to ask a couple. And these are not political questions as much as they are how they impact the city of Albany.
Sure.
So one person you have shared the lectern with a lot in the last 6.5 years has been Kathy Hochul.
Yes.
She was here for the culinary. I'm assuming that was the last time she was in city. She's a new governor. You know her.
Yep.
You guys joke about Notre Dame and SU. You know where our household is. Sorry about that, Notre Dame. You have to go to my brother-in-law for sympathy there. What do you think so far of her governorship?
I'm very pleased. I did not expect anything less from her. She's a very sincere, educated lady who knows what's going on upstate New York, not always New York City or Albany.
So one of the comments has been made by some commentators that she is still traveling a lot. She's not spending an enormous amount of time in Albany. Right. Have you talked to her since she ascended?
No, not really.
I say this. You seem to have a good working relationship with her. Would you ever think of going to work for her administration?
No. I'm an Auburn guy. I enjoy the bright lights for couple hours, but then I love coming home. So no, that hasn't even entered my mind, or there's never been a discussion with her.
And so your airport authority, is that a local appointment, or is that a gubernatorial appointment?
That one was by the mayor of Syracuse,
Ben Walsh.
And prior to that, it was Stephanie Miner.
So I will ask this. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk in the last 10 days that there looks like there will be a primary for governor on the Democratic side. Will you be supporting Kathy Hochul?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And have you been approached by any of the other campaigns as of yet?
No. Yeah, not for the gubernatorial race, but for representatives in Washington, in Albany.
So, if I remember correctly, you supported Francis Canola 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago, and he ended up losing the primary to Dana Balter. Depending on what the districts look like, and that is all up in the air right now. If he is running in the district that includes Auburn, will you be supporting him?
More than likely. And I'm not giving it a dodge. I haven't really spoken to him and talked to him one-on-one. I have, but nothing.
But you've been to the Wednesday morning roundtable with him. You've been to other things. So there is a connection. Yeah. For some, like him as a candidate.
Well, he was in the Navy, but I
you don't hold that against him.
No, I try not to. And I hope he's listening.
So, in his particular case, do you think he could have done better against? He lost the Democratic primary which tends to be, from a historical point of view, more progressive, more left-wing, left of center vote, not left-wing, left of center voters. Do you think somebody like a Francis Canola with a military background would have done better in the general election against John Kako?
I do.
And is that why you would support him also?
I like his background, Naval Academy, and just the way he works with people, talks with people. That's, to me, there again, reading body language, but that's important in my mind, why I would endorse or not endorse an individual.
So talking about the military, today is the 9th, and so City Council is meeting today so that you don't meet on that solemn day.
Correct.
On Thursday. So what does the city have planned for Veterans Day?
On Veterans Day, which is November 11th at 11 a.m., there will be a Veterans Day ceremony at the Veterans Park on Genesee Street across.
So not at City Hall, it'll be at Veterans Park.
Yes. And in other years, I'll take the hit for this. I've always struggle with the older individuals coming in a freezing, rainy, snowy day, somebody falling or whatever. And people, they want to use the Veterans Park, so we decided this year, no matter what the weather is,
rain, shine.
Yeah, dress for it, because we're going to be there.
So speaking of winter, Christmas and the holidays are upon us. So last set of questions. I don't think the city did a Christmas parade last year because of COVID. Will you be doing one after Thanksgiving this year?
We will. And I apologize, I do not have the date, but I will get it to you.
It's either the Friday or Saturday. Yeah. Is it still the same
basically
route? You're going to go down there, do a nice lighting in front of City Hall. That's the game plan over by the visitor center.
That's correct. The way we set it up last time is we had the bandstand adjacent to the parking garage, and then we did the countdown from there, and from there we went over and sang carols, and Santa arrived, and so
you're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Back to normal.
Back to normal, because Christmas comes and then it's January and start everything all over again.
So hopefully parents, now that they can get 5 to 12-year-olds, and I know you have a number of grandchildren that are all in that range, hopefully they'll all get vaccinated and we'll bring those numbers down.
Well, we're making plans for Thanksgiving. We're going to be together. All of us are going to be together, and we're looking forward to that, because that was, for many of us, and I'm sure in your family, it was tough not having everyone together.
We were 4 people last year.
Yeah.
That's down 11 from usual. So hopefully we'll be back.
11, that's 50.
We're pikers compared to you.
That's not even a first setting or anything. So.
Well, we do want to thank Mayor Michael D. Quill for joining us today for a city update. Hope you'll come join us in the spring when you can tell us how you're going to spend the federal money.
Absolutely. Whenever you call, I'll be glad to be here. Thank you.
We will be back in just a moment with Cuyahoga County Legislative Chairwoman Aileen McNabb Coleman. We'll be talking to her about the budget that was proposed by her on Thursday night of last week for the county for the 2020 year. We'll also talk about a couple of other things facing the county right now. We will be back on Thursday with 2 back-to-back Inside Government shows. These will finish our fall semester here at the college. We started a little bit early, and we also did a lot of forums. But it'll be on Veterans Day. We'll have New York State Senator John Mannion, who will give us an update, as well as New York State Assemblyman John Lamadas, both who are very new to the legislature. We'll ask them about their first year there as well. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can ask us questions. You can send us questions for either of them, or give us thoughts for future guests when we return in the spring to Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page. You can send your questions by email to cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good evening, a great tomorrow. Be safe. We will see you back here in the studio on Thursday, and wear a mask and get vaccinated if you have not.